My fiancée cheated with a male stripper at her bachelorette party, then claimed she was pregnant, but I let the DNA test teach her a cruel lesson. I'm 35, male, married for 8 years, and up until recently, I thought I had a pretty solid life. My wife, Elena, and I had a nice house, stable jobs, and we were even talking about starting a family. Turns out, I was living in a fool's paradise. This all went down a couple of months ago. It was a Saturday, and I decided to finally clean out our spare room, aka the dumping ground for all the random crap we don't use but can't bring ourselves to throw away. Elena was out doing her usual thing, shopping, gossiping, who even knows, so I figured it was a good time to be productive. While going through the mess, I found this old hard drive I didn't even remember we had. I was curious, so I plugged it into my laptop and started sifting through the files. Most of it was harmless, old photos, vacation videos, random downloads from when we were broke and sharing a computer. Then I saw it, a folder called Bachelorette Memories. Now, let me be clear, I wasn't snooping. It was right there, and honestly, I thought it'd be funny to see Elena's bachelorette party shenanigans. I expected drunk karaoke, silly games, maybe a few risque jokes. What I didn't expect was this. The first video seemed normal enough, Elena and her bridesmaids laughing, doing shots, and wearing those dumb little crowns that say bride-to-be. But the second video? A whole different vibe. It started at a club, loud music, flashing lights, the whole deal. There was a male stripper dressed like a firefighter, because of course there was, and he was doing his thing. Elena wasn't just watching, though. She was all over him, grinding, touching, basically acting like she was auditioning for some raunchy reality show. I was already feeling sick, but then the video jumped to a hotel room. She was kissing him. No, scratch that, she was making out with him like her life depended on it. I paused the video, stared at the screen, and just sat there, frozen. My first thought was, this has to be a joke. My second thought was, why the hell would she save this? When Elena got home, I didn't even wait for her to take off her shoes. We need to talk, I said, holding up the hard drive. She gave me her usual annoyed look, the one she reserves for when I interrupt her Instagram scroll. What now, Marcus? She sighed. I found some videos on this, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Her expression didn't change. So what? Videos? Your bachelorette party, I said, staring her dead in the eye. Her face went pale for a second, but then she rolled her eyes. Oh, for God's sake, Marcus, that was years ago. Why are you even bringing this up? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Elena, you cheated on me with a stripper. I saw the video. She shrugged, like I just accused her of forgetting to do the laundry. It was my bachelorette party. It's not a big deal. Everyone does it. I swear my jaw almost hit the floor. Everyone does it? Are you seriously trying to justify this? She crossed her arms and gave me that condescending look she's mastered. You're overreacting. It's not like I had an affair. It was a one-night thing. I was drunk, and it was before we were even married. Let it go. Let it go? I repeated, my voice rising. You kept this from me for 8 years, and you're telling me to let it go? She rolled her eyes again, like I was being the unreasonable one. Marcus, it's not like I slept with the guy. It was just some fun. I didn't tell you because I knew you'd blow it out of proportion, and look, you're proving me right. I couldn't believe her audacity. Not only was she unapologetic, but she was acting like I was the villain here. I trusted you, I said, my voice shaking, and you betrayed me. This isn't just some little mistake, Elena. You lied to me for years. That's when she hit me with the classic Elena move, turning the tables. Oh, grow up, Marcus. You're acting like a child. It's been 8 years, and we've had a great life. Are you seriously going to throw that all away because of something stupid I did before we even said I do? I couldn't even look at her. I grabbed my keys and walked out. I didn't know where I was going. I just needed to get away from her. I ended up at a park, sitting on a bench like some kind of movie cliché. I kept replaying her words in my head, it's not a big deal. Everyone does it. Let it go. Was I crazy for feeling this way? Was I really overreacting? No, I decided I wasn't. Cheating is cheating, and the fact that she didn't even feel sorry for it made it 10 times worse. When I got home, she was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone like nothing had happened. Are you done with your little tantrum? She asked, not even looking up. I didn't answer. I just went to the bedroom and closed the door. That night, I slept on the couch. Since then, I haven't been able to look at her the same way. Every time she smiles, every time she touches me, all I can think about is that video and the way she acted like it was nothing. I don't know what's going to happen next, but one thing's for sure, I'm not the same guy who sat there laughing at old TikTok videos a few hours before my entire world came crashing down. Alright, so after finding out about Elena's little bachelorette fun, I was a wreck. Half of me wanted to just end it right there and move on with my life, but the other half, probably the part that had been married to her for 8 years, thought maybe we could fix this. So, like an idiot, I agreed to try marriage counseling. Elena suggested it, which I thought might be a sign she was actually remorseful and wanted to put in the effort. Well, she wasn't, but at the time, I was desperate to salvage what we had. We started seeing Dr. Fields, this older therapist who had this whole wise grandma vibe going on. She was calm and neutral, which is probably the only reason I didn't lose it during the sessions. I went in ready to lay it all out, hoping we'd get somewhere. The first session was a joke. Dr. Fields asked us to explain why we were there, and before I could even open my mouth, Elena jumped in. Well, she said with this fake little sigh, Marcus has been really distant and angry lately. He keeps bringing up something that happened years ago, before we were even married, and it's been hard to move forward. Excuse me? The audacity. She made it sound like I was losing my mind over nothing. When it was my turn, I didn't hold back. I told Dr. Fields exactly what I'd found, how Elena had hidden it for 8 years, and how I felt like my trust in her was completely shattered. Elena didn't even look at me, she just sat there, rolling her eyes like I was wasting her time. When Dr. Fields asked why she hadn't told me sooner, Elena shrugged and said, I didn't think it was a big deal. It was one night, and it didn't mean anything. Oh, great. So my marriage fell apart because of something that didn't mean anything. Things didn't improve after that. Every session felt like a loop. I'd talk about my pain and how I couldn't trust her anymore, and Elena would roll her eyes or say something like, Marcus, you're blowing this way out of proportion. One time, I tried to open up about how I felt like a fool for not realizing sooner. Instead of showing any sympathy, Elena laughed and said, well, maybe if you didn't go digging around on old hard drives, you wouldn't be so upset now. Seriously, that's what she said. And then there was her behavior outside of therapy. While I was agonizing over how to rebuild our relationship, Elena seemed completely unbothered. She'd come home late from work or dinner with friends, her excuses always vague and full of holes. At first, I told myself I was just being paranoid. After all, I already didn't trust her, so maybe I was overthinking things. But then I started noticing patterns. She'd get all dressed up for these so-called dinners, like, way more dressed up than she ever did when we went out. Heels, makeup, the works. And when I'd ask who she was meeting, she'd always give some vague answer like, oh, just the girls. The girls didn't even seem to exist half the time. I'd check her social media, and there wouldn't be a single photo or post about these outings, no tags, no check-ins, nothing. One night, she came home late, like almost midnight. I was sitting on the couch, waiting for her, and when she walked in, she looked startled. Oh, she said, freezing in the doorway, you're still up. Yeah, I said, where were you? She hesitated for a second, then shrugged. Just out with Chelsea. We got carried away talking. Chelsea, her best friend, is the kind of person who posts every detail of her life on Instagram. If they'd been together, there would have been stories, posts, something. But when I checked, nothing. That's when the doubt started creeping in. Was she still cheating? Was she lying about these dinners and late nights at work? One night, I couldn't take it anymore. I asked her point blank if she was seeing someone else. Her response? A full-blown meltdown. How dare you? She yelled, tears streaming down her face. I've been trying so hard to make things right, and you have the nerve to accuse me of cheating? She stormed off to the bedroom, slamming the door behind her. But here's the thing, her reaction didn't make me feel any better. If anything, it just made me more suspicious. The final straw came during one of our therapy sessions. Dr. Fields asked Elena if she felt like she was doing everything she could to rebuild trust. I think I'm doing more than enough, Elena said, crossing her arms. Marcus just doesn't want to move on. He's stuck in the past, and nothing I do is ever going to be enough for him. It was like a slap in the face. I'd been bending over backward to try and forgive her, to fix our marriage, and she had the nerve to act like I was the problem. After that session, I started keeping track of her late nights. I wasn't proud of it, but I felt like I needed proof. I'd check her phone when she wasn't around, glance at her emails, even watch her car mileage. Sure enough, things didn't add up. She'd say she was going one place, but her mileage suggested she'd been somewhere completely different. She'd get random texts from numbers I didn't recognize, and when I asked about them, she'd laugh it off and say, it's just work stuff. Don't be paranoid. By this point, therapy felt pointless. Dr. Fields kept encouraging us to communicate openly and rebuild trust, But how do you rebuild trust when your wife is still sneaking around? I started to feel like an idiot for even trying. Elena wasn't putting in any effort. She didn't care about fixing things. Hell, she didn't even care enough to cover her tracks. By the 7th month of therapy, I knew I couldn't do it anymore. I stopped going to the sessions, and honestly, I think Elena was relieved. She stopped pretending to care and went right back to her old habits. I started seriously considering divorce. It wasn't an easy decision, and I wrestled with it for weeks. 8 years of marriage isn't something you can just walk away from without feeling like you failed. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized I couldn't keep living like this. I deserved better than constant doubt, lies, and a wife who clearly didn't respect me or our marriage. But it's been crazy, and things didn't go as planned. It has taken me a while to get my thoughts together. I don't know what to do anymore. Okay, so it was a regular Tuesday night. I just finished another awkward dinner where we barely spoke. Elena was on her phone, scrolling endlessly like she always does, while I was trying to figure out the right moment to bring up the D word. All of a sudden, she put her phone down and said, "We need to talk." I froze. Usually, those words meant another argument about how I wasn't letting go of the past. I sighed, bracing myself. What now? Instead of the usual rant, she reached into her bag and slid something across the table. It took me a second to realize what it was, a pregnancy test. Positive. "We're having a baby," she said, looking at me like she expected me to jump up and start celebrating. I didn't. I just stared at the test, my mind racing. This should have been exciting, right? But all I could think about was how much I didn't trust her and whether the baby was even mine. "Are you sure?" I finally asked. "Yes, Marcus," she snapped, like I was being an idiot. "I've taken 3 tests. They're all positive." I sat there, trying to figure out what to say. Was I supposed to be happy? Supportive? I felt completely numb. "Say something," she demanded, her tone shifting from expectant to annoyed. "I don't know what to say," I admitted. She rolled her eyes. "This is good news, Marcus. We've been trying for this." "Yeah, we'd been trying, for a baby, for a better relationship, for something to make us feel normal again. But things hadn't been normal for a long time. The timing felt all wrong, and I couldn't shake this creeping doubt that maybe, just maybe, this wasn't the blessing she was making it out to be. I've been trying to process the news." Elena acted like the pregnancy had magically fixed everything, like we were suddenly on solid ground again. She started talking about baby names and nursery ideas, pulling up Pinterest boards and making lists. Meanwhile, I was drowning in doubt. Every time she mentioned the baby, my mind went to dark places. What if it wasn't mine? What if all those late nights and sketchy excuses meant more than I'd let myself believe? I hated thinking like that, but I couldn't stop. I tried to play along, mostly because I didn't know what else to do. I nodded at her ideas, went with her to a couple of doctor's appointments, and even pretended to care when she showed me ultrasound photos. But I couldn't shake the feeling that this was all wrong. Our relationship hadn't suddenly gotten better just because there was a baby involved. If anything, the cracks were even more visible now. We still didn't talk about anything meaningful. Every conversation was surface level, and even those felt forced. One night, as we sat on the couch, she showed me another ultrasound picture. "Look," she said, smiling, "that's our baby." I forced a smile and nodded, but inside, I felt like a fraud. I wanted to believe it, to feel excited, but all I could think was, is this really my baby? That's when I started running through the timeline in my head. The last time we'd been intimate wasn't recent. Things between us had been cold for months. Even when we tried to reconnect, it felt more like going through the motions than anything real. If the baby was mine, the timing didn't make sense. By my math, she would have conceived at a time when we weren't even really talking, let alone acting like a married couple. The thought made my stomach turn. I wanted to confront her, to ask her straight up if there was something she wasn't telling me, but every time I got close to bringing it up, I couldn't. Just because I can't put her under such tension while pregnant. After all, it's not the baby's fault. I started looking into paternity tests, not to act on it yet, but just to know my options. There are tests you can do during pregnancy, but they're expensive and require cooperation from the mother. I wasn't sure how Elena would react if I brought it up, and honestly, I wasn't ready for that fight. I decided to wait. If my suspicions were right, I'd have proof when the baby was born. Until then, I'd play along and try to keep the peace. Here's where I need your advice, Reddit. Am I doing the right thing by waiting? Should I just confront her now, even if it risks blowing everything up while she's pregnant? Or am I being smart by holding off until I have solid proof? I honestly don't know anymore. I had nothing to do but wait for Elena to deliver the baby first, and then I couldn't find time to post while going through this mess. So, The day Caleb was born was surreal. It should have been a moment of joy, a new chapter in our lives, but for me, it felt like a chapter I was afraid to read, one filled with doubts and unanswered questions. Elena went into labor late at night, and I drove her to the hospital. She was in pain and snapped at me over everything, the way I was driving, how long it took to park, even the way I opened the hospital door. I didn't argue back. I told myself it was the stress and the labor talking, but deep down, I knew this tension wasn't new. The delivery went smoothly, and within a few hours, Caleb was here, a boy, perfect in every way, or so I wanted to believe. When the nurse handed him to me, I tried to let go of all my doubts. I looked down at his tiny face, and for a brief moment, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe everything could work out. Maybe this was the fresh start we needed. But that hope quickly faded as I looked closer. I couldn't help noticing that Caleb didn't look like me at all. He had dark hair and a complexion that didn't match either mine or Elena's. I tried to dismiss it. Babies change, right? But the doubts I'd been carrying for months came rushing back. Still, I didn't say anything, not yet. Elena was exhausted and fell asleep soon after the birth. I sat in the corner of the room, holding Caleb and staring at him. He was innocent in all this, and yet he was at the center of everything I couldn't ignore. I'd already planned to get a paternity test, and now I knew I couldn't wait. The hospital offered discreet testing, and I requested it before we even left. I didn't tell Elena, I wasn't ready for that fight yet. I needed answers first. The first few weeks at home were a blur of sleepless nights and endless baby cries. Elena was all in on her new role as a mom, posting pictures of Caleb on social media, soaking up the likes and comments. She acted like we were the happiest family in the world, as if everything was perfect now. Meanwhile, I was spiraling. I did everything I was supposed to do, changing diapers, bottle feeding Caleb, trying to be present, but I felt like I was living someone else's life. Every time I looked at him, I found myself searching for something that connected him to me. I wanted to find some resemblance, some trait that said, "This is your son," but I couldn't. Elena didn't seem to notice my hesitation, or maybe she just didn't care. She was too busy basking in the attention from friends and family. Whenever I brought up how I was feeling, she'd wave it off. "You're just overwhelmed," she'd say, like my doubts were nothing more than new dad jitters. 2 weeks after Caleb was born, the paternity test results arrived. I'd been dreading that email, but when it finally came, I opened it immediately. The words jumped out at me: probability of paternity, 0%. I stared at the screen, my hands shaking. I'd prepared myself for this possibility, but seeing it spelled out so clearly was something else entirely. Caleb wasn't mine. All the doubts I'd had over the past year suddenly felt justified. The late nights, the vague excuses, the timing, it all made sense now. Elena had been lying to me from the moment she found out she was pregnant. I sat in my car, parked a block away from our house, trying to figure out what to do next. I thought about Caleb, about the moments we'd already shared, and it broke my heart. He wasn't to blame for any of this. He was just a baby, caught in the middle of a mess he didn't create. But Elena? She had some explaining to do. That night, after Caleb fell asleep, I confronted her. "We need to talk," I said, my voice colder than I intended. She looked up from her phone, frowning. "What now?" I took a deep breath and pulled up the paternity test results on my phone. "I got a paternity test," I said, handing it to her. Her face went pale as she read it. "You tested Caleb without telling me?" she said, her voice shaking with anger. "Yes," I said, my voice steady. "I needed to know the truth," she stammered, her eyes darting around the room like she was looking for an escape. "Marcus, I can explain." "Explain what?" I snapped. "That you've been lying to me for months? That you let me believe this baby was mine when you knew he wasn't?" She started crying, the kind of tears that once would have made me want to comfort her. "Not anymore. It was a mistake," she said through her sobs. "I didn't mean for it to happen. It was just one night, and I didn't know how to tell you." "Who's the father?" I asked, my voice sharp. "It doesn't matter," she said, shaking her head. "It matters to me," I said. "It matters to Caleb." She finally admitted it was someone she worked with, someone she'd been seeing during the worst months of our marriage, while we were supposed to be rebuilding trust. Her excuses came flooding out. She said she felt neglected, that she made a mistake, that she thought I'd never find out. But none of it mattered. Over the next few days, I met with a lawyer to finalize the divorce papers. I was done. The lies, the betrayal, the entitlement, there was no coming back from this. The divorce was going to be messy, that much was clear. But I was ready to fight for what was fair and, finally, for what was right for me. I gave her the papers one evening after Caleb had gone to sleep. I sat across from her at the kitchen table, the documents neatly stacked in front of her. "This is it, Elena," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "We're done. I can't stay in this marriage." She picked up the papers and started flipping through them, her expression unreadable. But when she got to the part about finances, her face twisted into anger. "You're seriously leaving me with nothing?" she snapped, slamming the papers down. I frowned. "You're not entitled to anything, Elena. Caleb isn't my child, and you lied to me for months. I don't owe you a dime." Her eyes narrowed. "You've been acting like Caleb's father this whole time. You can't just walk away now. What about child support? What about all the sacrifices I've made for this family?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Sacrifices? She was the one who destroyed our marriage, and now she was trying to guilt me into paying for her mistakes. "Elena," I said, my voice steady but firm, "you made this mess, not me. You lied, you cheated, and you let me believe Caleb was mine. I've done more for him in the past few weeks than his real father probably ever will, but that doesn't mean you get to drain my bank account." She crossed her arms, her jaw tightening. "You think a judge is going to see it that way? I've been a stay-at-home mom for weeks now because of Caleb. I gave up my career for this family." That was rich, considering she'd spent most of her time scrolling through Instagram and pretending to be the perfect mom for likes. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of legal back and forth. Elena wasn't going down without a fight, and she made that very clear. She hired a lawyer who clearly specialized in playing dirty, and suddenly I was getting hit with all kinds of demands. She wanted spousal support. She wanted me to cover Caleb's expenses. She even tried to argue that I should be responsible for a portion of her medical bills from the pregnancy. Her lawyer's reasoning? Mr. Marcus acted as the father during the pregnancy and birth, and it is in the child's best interest for him to continue supporting the household. It was laughable. My lawyer, bless her no-nonsense attitude, wasn't having any of it. "We'll fight this," she told me during one of our meetings. "You've been deceived, and there's no legal basis for her claims." Still, the process was exhausting. Every time I thought we'd made progress, Elena found a new way to complicate things. She'd throw in last-minute demands, refuse to cooperate during negotiations, and even try to paint me as the bad guy for abandoning her and Caleb. One day, during one of our court-mandated mediation sessions, Elena really showed her true colors. We were sitting across from each other in a small conference room, with our lawyers mediating. She was dressed like she was going to a gala, hair and makeup done to perfection, probably hoping to play the poor, innocent wife card. "I just don't understand how you can be so heartless," she said, her voice dripping with fake emotion. "After everything we've been through, you're just walking away and leaving me and Caleb with nothing." I clenched my jaw, forcing myself to stay calm. "Elena, you lied to me for months. Caleb isn't my child. You don't get to act like the victim here." She scoffed. "You've been acting like his father. You think you can just flip a switch and walk away?" "Yes," I said firmly, "because that's what happens when you lie to someone about something as important as paternity." Her lawyer tried to intervene, talking about emotional bonds and continuity of care, but my lawyer shut it down fast. "Your client has no legal grounds to demand support for a child who is not my client's," she said, her voice sharp. Furthermore, Mrs. Elena knowingly misrepresented the situation, which could constitute fraud. "Shall we pursue that angle instead?" Elena's face turned red, and for once, she didn't have a snappy comeback. The turning point came when the court ordered her to disclose the identity of Caleb's biological father. She'd been avoiding the topic for weeks, insisting it wasn't relevant, but the judge didn't buy it. When she finally named him, a coworker she'd been seeing during our rough patch, it was like the final piece of the puzzle clicked into place. Her credibility took a massive hit, and any sympathy the court might have had for her went out the window. The judge ruled that I had no obligation to Caleb or Elena, financially or otherwise. My lawyer even managed to block her attempt to get spousal support, arguing that her actions had directly led to the breakdown of the marriage. When the final ruling came in, I felt an overwhelming sense of relief. Elena's demands had been denied, and I was officially free. Elena, on the other hand, was furious. She stormed out of the courtroom, muttering about how unfair it all was, how she deserved better. But for once, her entitlement didn't get her what she wanted. "I'll leave you here for now, Reddit." Hey, Reddit. It's been a while since I shared my story. I've had some time to reflect, and let's just say life has been interesting. After the divorce, I moved out of the house and into a small but cozy apartment across town. At first, it was weird adjusting to life on my own, but honestly, it felt good. No more constant tension, no more pretending everything was okay. It was just me, my space, and a fresh start. I threw myself into work and started going to the gym again, something I hadn't done in years. Turns out, Physical activity really does help clear your head. I even picked up some hobbies I'd neglected during my marriage, like hiking and photography. Friends who had distanced themselves during my marriage, probably because of Elena, started reaching out again. It was nice to reconnect with people and feel like myself for the first time in years. Elena, on the other hand, wasn't doing so hot. A mutual friend told me that Caleb's biological father completely ghosted her after the court ordered her to reveal his identity. Apparently, the guy didn't want anything to do with her or the baby, and he even transferred to another office to avoid her. Classy. With no real support system, Elena was left scrambling. Her parents, who had initially backed her during the divorce, were furious when they found out she'd lied to me about Caleb's paternity. They cut back on helping her financially, forcing her to face the consequences of her actions for the first time. Elena tried to put on a brave face for social media, of course, lots of posts about how she was a strong, independent woman and loving single mom. But anyone who knew her could tell she was struggling. Elena wanted to get back in touch with me. She called me one evening, her voice shaky. "Marcus, I've been thinking a lot, and I feel like we should talk." I didn't even let her finish. "There's nothing to talk about, Elena," I said. She sighed dramatically, like she was the victim. "I know I messed up, but we had something real. Don't you miss what we had?" I almost laughed. "What we had was built on lies, Elena. I've moved on, and you need to do the same." She started crying, but I wasn't falling for it this time. I told her I wished her the best and hung up. A few weeks later, she showed up at my apartment. I have no idea how she found out where I lived, probably through a mutual friend or something. She was standing at my door, holding Caleb, looking tired and desperate. "Can we talk?" she asked. I didn't want to cause a scene, so I let her in. She sat on my couch, bouncing Caleb on her knee, and started her little speech about how she'd changed and how we could make things work for Caleb's sake. "Marcus, I know I hurt you, but Caleb needs a father figure," she said, tears welling up in her eyes. "You've always been so good to him." I stared at her, barely able to believe what I was hearing. "Elena, Caleb has a father. It's not me, and you don't get to use him as a way to manipulate me into coming back." She looked at me like I'd just slapped her. "You're really going to turn your back on him?" "I'm not turning my back on him," I said. "I'm turning my back on you." She left after that, but not without another dramatic round of tears and guilt tripping. She'd send me long texts about how much she missed me, how Caleb needed me, how we could start fresh. I ignored most of them. When she wasn't trying to guilt me, she was trying to appeal to my sympathy. She'd talk about how hard it was being a single mom, how the bills were piling up, how lonely she was. Part of me felt bad for her. Caleb didn't ask for any of this, after all, but I wasn't about to let her drag me back into her mess. I felt pity for her, honestly. She'd been so entitled during our marriage, so convinced that she could get away with anything, and now she was left with nothing but her regrets. Caleb, as much as I cared for him during those first few weeks, wasn't my responsibility. I hope Elena figures things out for his sake, but I'm done being her safety net. Looking back, I'm proud of myself for walking away. It wasn't easy, and there were moments when I doubted if I was doing the right thing. But now, seeing where I am and where Elena is, I know I made the right choice. And if Elena's downfall taught me anything, it's that you can't let someone else's lies and manipulation define your life. So, yeah, Reddit, things are looking up for me. As for Elena? Well, she's still trying to figure out how to clean up the mess she made. I wish her luck, she's going to need it.